Welcome to 2 cents Short of a Dollar, the show where we give our 2 cents and keep it 100. We're your host. That's Motiz. I'm Rue, back in the building. Got some stuff to talk about today. It was an interesting fight weekend. We had Benavidez and Plant. They finally got it on, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
I would say that your prediction in Benavidez versus Plant, you had Benavidez winning by decision, whereas I had Benavidez winning by stoppage. So you got that one. You predicted it right. So I guess what were your thoughts, I guess, from round 1 to round 12 during the fight? What were
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously it was a tale of two halves, right? I was surprised the way Caleb Plant came out. I thought he was really dominating the fight, dictating the pace, making Benavidez miss a lot, kind of frustrating Benavidez. I'm like, whoa, I was kind of surprised. I'm like, this is looking kind of crazy. Like, I didn't recognize Benavidez the way Caleb Plant was making him look. You know what I'm saying?
right?
And then obviously I knew it wouldn't be a walk in the park. I know Benavidez would come on, but the way, no lie, I may have gave Caleb the first five rounds, maybe. I don't know, maybe 4 out of 5. I mean, maybe like 5 out of 6 or the first 5 or something. But he was completely in control of the fight, in my opinion. But
Right.
David started making the fight ugly, because Caleb would clinch and David would push him off and be the first to strike, first out of the action,
Right.
And I think that's when it really started to turn. Caleb started to kind of like slow down. David would get those hits, go to the body, really slow him down, and then Caleb just became completely ineffective. I know the last 7 rounds, I scored for David.
Got you.
I had to score for David. So I'll say I gave Caleb probably the first 5, David the last 7, which is crazy because it usually doesn't go that way. It's usually back and forth. But David took him into deep waters, and I think Caleb just really couldn't handle it. As a fighter, I think he's a really good fighter, but he might just not be on that level.
Yeah. So I got to ask you, was there anything in particular that surprised you in that fight?
Yeah, the fashion in which David gutted it out, honestly, because he didn't get his combinations off like he usually does. It wasn't just a sitting target there for him like a lot of times his opponents are. So the fact that he was able to just find another way to pull that fight out, just shows even more that he's the real deal. It's not like I could just beat tomato cans. This is a really good opponent in front of me.
Yeah.
And when the fight wasn't going how by my game plan, all right, we scrapped that. We're gonna do something different. And he took Caleb, like I said earlier, to deep waters and almost drowned him a couple times. There's a couple times that he almost drowned him, but
we got to thank the ref. We got to thank the ref for providing representation there.
Minus the headbutt, I thought the ref kind of, like you said, saved Caleb a couple times because David was really coming on. And like I said, because Caleb, he looked tired because he kept clinching. But I think that hurt him because out of that clinch, every time it was David, boom, first hit, boom, dictating the pace. It was a war, though. It was a war. I don't think either fighter disappointed. I don't think either fighter should hang their head. It was a war, but I do think the better man won.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you 100%. Like, from the beginning of the fight, I would have to agree. I do think that Caleb was doing a phenomenal job, with spacing, making sure not to get hit, right? If he's seen David Benavidez trying to exchange and try to get a couple combinations off, he kind of went for the clinch, kind of keep him off with the stab jab, like you mentioned in our previous videos, right? Or the 1-2, and then kind of getting up out of there, right? Just kind of movement. But as the fight progressed, right, like Benavidez said, he said he was going to find him. He said he was going to stalk him down. And once he touches him up, what are you going to do? Yeah. And I think as the fight progressed, even those looping hooks to the body, right, I think it just started slowly waning. It started really breaking down Caleb Plant. And like you mentioned, those tactics of let me just grab because I don't want this guy to let off on me.
Yeah.
Dave Benavidez started predicting it and started keeping his elbow in between his head and the clinch where he could kind of turn him and then exchange and throw punches from the inside. Boom, boom, which was doing devastating damage. One thing about Caleb, though, he got a chin on him because those shots he was absorbing, boy, he was getting obliterated at certain points in time. And I respect his heart because even in the 12th round, even though his punches wasn't really, he was just still throwing, he was just still trying to throw. You could tell he was really not trying to go down. And I
Yeah.
think he kind of went into survival mode to just not get stopped,
Yeah.
especially by an opponent that he had huge conflicts with. And the person saying, up until this point, I'm going to knock you out. So at the very least, if he's not going to win, he's like, you know what? I just can't get KO. You know what I mean?
So for me, I think that's where we kind of like part ways. He did go into survival mode. To me, I think maybe he kind of like he was defeated. He knew he couldn't win this fight, but because he was winning so big early, I think he still could have won the fight if he could have got something off. He just maybe had to steal another round or two here or there, and then leave it to the judges, give them a tough decision to make. But he just really couldn't do it. Everything he was doing was ineffective. I was hoping him or his corner could have came up with something, throw something different at him, but maybe it's just not in his repertoire. You know what I'm saying? Like I like you say, he kept just throwing the same combination. It was ineffective. Every time out the clinch, it was David. And then it just became repetitious towards the end of the fight. And it just seemed like nothing he did was gonna have any impact on David. And like I was saying earlier, he might have just met his limitation, but I was really hoping to see him leave it out there somehow. And that doesn't necessarily mean get knocked out, but like I said, you were in the fight because you were so many rounds ahead. Like I just really wanted to see him do something different. You know what I'm saying? I had no dog in the fight. I didn't care who won. But like I said, I kept seeing him do the same thing, except for maybe round 12. Round 12, I seen him have a little bit of success. But it was so many rounds before that he wasn't having any success. I'm like, come on, Caleb. You got to do something differently, though.
Yeah. I definitely hear you on that. So I got to ask you too. The bell rings, 12th round is over, right? They raise David Benavidez's hand, and you see Caleb Plant walk towards Benavidez's corner, right? He apologizes to the father, but also requests like, "Hey, do you have anything else to say to me?" Jose Benavidez Sr. apologized to Caleb Plant about the words that they've exchanged in the past, and cleared up all the air. And then of course Benavidez and Caleb Plant kind of exchanged a respectable kind of mediation between the two. Like, it seems like it was a show of respect between the two. What were your thoughts on that? Did you think it was gonna happen? Because I know for me, I didn't think that was gonna happen. So that was nice to see.
Nah, I didn't think that was gonna happen, but like I said, I think after you go to a war like that, you just respect your opponent. You know what I'm saying? David probably thought it was gonna be easier than it was gonna be. If you ask me,
Right.
I'm sure Caleb knew it was gonna be hard, but when you go through like I said, a battle like that, you just gotta like like respect your opponent. Shake their hands, and like Caleb said, the better man won. So I really appreciate the way they went out. They didn't shame the sport of boxing.
Right.
I thought Jose Sr. was speaking way too much, so I'm glad that he can kind of come down and humble himself.
Right.
It was a great fight, and then coming off a great fight like that, like David, you really catapult yourself. We really want to see what's next. So I'm glad that he was able to conduct himself like a professional. I didn't want to just see him go out there and just act crazy. I want him to go out there, act like a professional, and go and call out Canelo like he did. Like, I'm your mandatory. Come on, it's time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. So I guess the next question is, do you think Canelo takes that fight with Benavidez? I know Canelo has been calling that he wants that rematch with Bivol, right? But do you
Bad
think
idea.
absolutely bad idea, right? 100%. But do you think Canelo would take a fight with Benavidez now?
I think he would. Obviously, if he would, it's probably going to be around December-ish because he's supposed to fight Bivol in like September. But I think he would. I would say if I had to put a number on it, I'm 65, 35. 65 he would, 35 he wouldn't. And here's what can dictate it. I think Benavidez looked vulnerable. If I'm looking from Canelo, right? I'm like, okay, I can be slick too. I can do some movement, some head movement, get out the way. But guess what? I got something that I know can probably keep him off of me the way that Plant couldn't. And obviously, it's never, no two fights are the same, but you can probably take from where a fighter has success. And I do think Canelo's an intelligent fighter. And I do think he can see where Plant has some success and say, hey, I think I can have some success there as well, but I got something that he doesn't have, which is that power, right? So I do think coming out of this, he could be more confident in taking that fight against David Benavidez. But what I think can deter it though is if he fights Bivol in September, and if he loses bad, and that takes something out of him,
That is
that may
definitely a good
change
point.
how he feels going into a December fight with David Benavidez. How
Yeah.
about you? What's your opinion on if Canelo takes that fight?
So my opinion is a bit different from yours. I think, let's say hypothetically speaking, if he loses to Bivol, I'm probably on the same page as you. I don't think he takes the Benavidez fight, right? This is hypothetically speaking. But I think even if he beats Bivol, yeah, he'll have more confidence. But I still think he'll be a bit wary of taking the Benavidez fight. And you are right in the sense of Canelo's a slick fighter. He has great defense, right? But I would say Caleb Plant is a better defensive minded fighter as opposed to Canelo. Canelo has his flashy moments where he slips, but I think Caleb pride themselves in, in using the shoulder roll, being able to get out of there, grab, clinch, get up out of there, right? And I think, with Caleb Plant's height and throwing punches could kind of like distract fighters too. And I think Canelo has took on a style where he loads a lot with his punches,
Yeah,
right? And sometimes that doesn't that requires you kind of sit in one place and take punishment. So yeah, he has the power, but the way Benavidez punished Caleb Plant, right? That fight between Plant versus Benavidez looked much different between Plant and Canelo,
yeah,
right? Benavidez looked more impressive in beating down Plant than Canelo looked against knocking out Caleb Plant. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I think he just deeps that he just knows the size and Benavidez's like monster ability to kind of maintain his cardio for 12 rounds. I don't know if he has enough to kind of like, sustain that, right? You throwing punches, but I can see him getting to moments like even with Bivol when he in the corner taking all those punches. But the difference is Benavidez will go in there looking to stop you. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Right.
So we have yet to see, because if Benavidez could take Canelo's punches, he's done. He's done. Send him
Yeah,
to the gulag. He's done.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean? So and that's the question mark right there. And I would probably presume, because I think Benavidez is really a 175 pounder
Right,
fighting
right,
at
right.
168. So he should be fighting with Bivol and Arthur in them.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And then
but
remember what I said to you the other day on the phone. I backtracked a little bit because I remember I was saying I thought Caleb power, David might respect his Caleb's power more than he's expecting to. And I called you and I said, wait a minute. They used to bring David Benavidez in to spar with Triple G when he was
yeah,
little. I'm like, Triple G hits hard as hell.
yeah,
I'm like, nah, David could take a punch.
yeah,
I was like, yo, it's too late. I'm not gonna backtrack. I'm like, but I thought about that and I was like, oh
yeah.
man,
It's funny when you said it too. I completely forgot. I was yeah. I was like, I don't know. David Vinny just strikes me as a person that could like take a hit. You know what I mean? Just because
yeah,
his weight. So
yeah.
but
But he is a 175 pounder. I agree, but I think the cards are really in his favor now. I think because he's the mandatory, so he can exercise that mandatory, and he could either run Canelo out of there and get that belt, or Canelo can take that fight, and if he wins that, like the sky is the limit. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But I know David. I know he wants to fight Morrell, Andrade, and if Charlo ever does come to 168. So he has some really good fights there for him, and he'll probably be favored in all three of those fights.
100%. 100%.
You know,
Jamal hasn't fought in over 2 years. Andrade's is, I don't think he has the capability to really, and the prowess and the activity to beat David Benavidez, right? Especially if you compare the competition between the two. And then with Morale, we know Morale is still young, fairly, and I think it's more likely that fight will happen before the other two.
yeah, and Morale's good. It has good upside, but they're like what, a year and some change apart. So Benavidez is not that much older than him. He just has that much more
Much more
experience than him,
experience.
and
Yeah,
I think he'll probably get Morale out of there.
yeah,
I
I
don't
agree.
think it'll go to 12.
Yeah, I don't think it's going the distance,
Yeah,
especially with Morale's punching power and and the way Benavidez, just how he approaches his fights. Yeah, he's looking to get the stoppage.
yeah. I think the fights though are when if he goes to 175 like next year or so, him Bivol or him and Beterbiev.
Hmm.
Um, I think those are probably the fights right there. Also, Bivol versus Beterbiev, but I think 175 with Benavidez could be real interesting. Real
Yeah,
interesting. Um,
yeah,
I
I agree.
man, but I like Bivol, man. I think Bivol's gonna ruin our chances of seeing Benavidez and Canelo because I think Bivol is about to whip Canelo's ass.
He said he about to spank Canelo again. Oh
Yeah,
man.
because I think Bivol respected Canelo's power until he felt it. So you know what I'm saying. I think in before, and I think that's why he let off him. A couple times where he was like, I don't want to get clipped with something.
Yeah,
But I think then he started getting hit, and he was like, that's it.
yeah.
Okay. And
He was a he
I
was
think this time he's gonna come in not too confident because if you watch Bivol,
Mhm.
he's always level headed. He's just intelligent fighter. He's probably one of the most intelligent and rounded, just grounded fighters in boxing. He's never gonna just go too crazy. He's never gonna get pulled out of his character. He's gonna stick to his game plan. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So I just think he's gonna go and he's gonna know this guy can't mess with me. He doesn't like targets that aren't stationary. I think he's gonna put it on Canelo.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, yeah. I think if Canelo takes that fight, it's I think his chances are better compared to the first fight. I think Canelo's smart enough to make the necessary adjustments,
Mhm.
but I just don't see what he can do to kind of stave off Bivol's onslaught, right? Especially with his jab, especially his two, right? His long
Yeah.
two. Them just felt like thuds the way it was hitting Canelo. He almost stopped Canelo a few times in that fight,
Yeah.
right? But I think Canelo may have to try to outpoint him somehow, right? Look to kind of get off on him instead of trying to like load up, trying to like hurt his arm like he did with Callum Smith.
Mhm.
So I mean, I'm not confident Canelo taking that second fight with Bivol. There's a weight class. There's weight classes for a reason, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah,
who
yeah.
knows?
Canelo, he has to play it smart. He would have to catch someone the way he caught Kovalev at 175. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then after Archer's last fight, I'm not sure that's Archer. I know he's getting up there in age, but I don't think it's him either. So I think Canelo might as well just take the Benavidez fight at 168 and just
Yep,
go from there.
yep. And I think it just makes all the sense and more. That fight, he will earn more in terms of sales, right?
Mhm.
In terms of like what I think he will just earn more out of that fight compared to the Bivol rematch or fighting any other 175 pounder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think it's a no-brainer just to take the Benavidez fight, but hey, he probably just felt like his unfinished business with Bivol, and he don't want to probably jump into a Benavidez fight, take another L, right? And then his career is kind of like,
Yeah.
falling downwards. You get what I mean? Because then that's what people's gonna start saying. Yo, is Canelo, is it over? Like, is he people are already saying Canelo may not be the face of boxing no more. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, if he takes another L, especially against Benavidez, it's like, oh, yeah, he's done, you know.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to hear from the viewers. Who do you think won? Do you think Benavidez beat Plant? I feel like we're probably all on the same page with that one, but I could be wrong. So I would love to hear from you guys. And what do you think is next for David Benavidez?
Absolutely, absolutely. Definitely like, comment, subscribe, helps our video do well in the algorithm. And you want to see us next time. So
Yep,
appreciate
we'll
y'all.
be back soon. 2 cents short of a dollar, and we out.